Sailing down a pool of tears is where our story begins. Many moons ago on the Thames River, with two young girls, young Alice, in the peculiar pursuit of Lewis Carrol. Or should I say Charles Dodgson, mathematician and bachelor of Christ Church. It is revealed in history today that on this particular July day, as they were sailing, one of the girls asked for Dodgson to tell them a story, in which he responded with the story of a shrewd red queen, the rabbit in a waistcoat, and the office rocker's Mad Hatter. We all know the story of Alice in Wonderland, or at least the basis of it, but let's dive a little bit deeper into the rabbit hole and discover what Dodgson's early childhood was like, his life as a photographer, and the origins of his aftermath of his well-known novel, Alice in Wonderland. On July 27, 1832, Charles Lutwidge Dodgson was born in Daresbury, Cheshire, to the parents of Charles Dodgson, local parson, and Frances Jane Lutwidge, mother and caregiver. Growing up, it is stated by his cousin, Stuart Dodgson Collingwood, that Dodgson's nephew was a boy. That Dodgson was a boy of curiosity. He often had odd, peculiar pets such as snails, and would talk to them to keep him company. This allowed for him to start thinking about what it would be like to give to charity, and so he would often start like things such as giving the pith and thinking that would be given to the poor, and he had civilized warfare between worms, which was often odd. But yeah, so then he goes to a school called Richmond School in Yorkshire, and by the age of 12, he is there, and he got bullied on 2 occasions. However, he would not be one to be known to get bullied again, and so he ended up graciously standing up for himself, and yeah, the boys never messed with him again. And it was reported by his cousin Collingwood that Dodgson wrote poetry from an early age. His first poem speaks of evening, however, it is in a language that I can barely understand, and Collingwood describes the poem as blissful ignorance for having so many errors in it. Nonetheless, Dodgson went on to publish a story called The Unknown One, which Collingwood believes is about the simplicity of growing up in a sensational type that small boys usually reveal. This I find mighty impressive when compared to boys nowadays who only want to compare their feelings to Fortnite. Dodgson's professor, Mr. Tate, reports in a letter to his parents that he possesses a great genius, and so he believes that his star pupil of the class, Charles Dodgson, should go on to a school where they can teach him better. Fast forwarding through his life, it is reported by Scott Herring in the Simon & Scholar Enriched Classics of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass that Dodgson would soon transfer to Rugby School, enter Christ Church College in Oxford, where his mother would eventually suffer and die. Complete his bachelor's degree at Christ Church with second-class honors and first class in mathematics. Be appointed as a mathematical lecturer, and in 1855, discover his love for photography, which brings us to our next point. Go. Thank you. So many of Dodgson's photographies are often depicted by critics and disputed as to whether he was a pedophile or not. In today's culture, that would be no question, but by Victorian standards, according to the publication made by the Smithsonian, they saw childhood as a state of grace. Even nude photographs of children were considered pictures of innocence itself. One of Dodgson's more questionable photographs is this one of Beatrice. Now, Beatrice is clearly nude in this photograph, but Dodgson states that he got permission from her mother. In one of the letters reported by the Smithsonian, it reads, "It is a chance not to be lost to get a few good attitudes of Annie's lovely form and face, and by next year she may not, though I much hope won't, fancy herself too old to be a daughter of Eve." Rather creepy if you ask me, but it doesn't end there. By this time, Dodgson would have already met the Lindells and taken the trip down the Thames River, and So then there would become this awkward silence between the two families, which no one really knows why that happened, but many skeptics believe it is because of the very closeness that they had with one another, although no files report that anything actually took place. But the last thing that he would be seeing is giving her a present, which would happen to be the manuscript for the book Alice in Wonderland. Moving forward about a year or two after the first manuscript of Alice in Wonderland, and so began the fame and mystery of Lewis Carroll. In 1871, the sequel would be published, and then children and parents alike would gather around and listen to these stories by Dodgson as he would recite them. The Smithsonian even reports that Mr. Lewis Carroll would personally be invited to entertain Queen Victoria's two grandchildren. The book was such a success and was originally written for an audience of one, Alice Lindell, grew to an audience of millions, and eventually spread. While rather skepticized by critics and readers alike, we can almost all agree that Charles' books were one of wonder and curiosity. Without Charles' contributions to the fantasies of literature, the road of make-believe would be rather bland. So while I do not condone every choice he made, I am glad to have grown up with the books that he left behind for us to enjoy. Carrol's life was one of grandeur, mystery, and wonder, a truly magnificent writer who teeter-totters on the road of promiscuity. Thank you.